If you've got a workbench, odds are you've got a vise sitting on it. It's a simple deal. 2 jaws, a screw, and a handle. You crank it one way, it comes together and holds your part. Turn it backwards and it lets go. It does the same little job over and over again. From afar, it seems like the simplest tool in the shop, but once you start taking it apart, or better yet, making one, you realize how awfully complex it really is. Cast iron, precision machining, broaching, fitting, it takes a lot of people, more than you think to bring one of these things to life. Most of us never give our vise a second thought. But what does it take to make one? And who are the people behind it? So today, I want to show you how the Fireball Hardtail Vise gets made. And to do that, we're going to start right here at the Foundry. This is where we meet Efron. He's a lead foreman here at the Foundry who has spent over 40 years working in this industry.
My name is Efron Huerta. I've been doing this since 19 years old. I'm started in one of the foundries in El Monte, February 11, 1979.
The Foundry's job is to turn an imaginary design into metal, and it all starts with a pattern of the shape. This is generally made from a wooden material called redboard. This redboard vise will now be our desired shape to make the molds from. The redboard vise is then surrounded and packed in with a special type of sand. When the redboard vise is removed, there is a negative space that remains in the sand. This space ultimately gets filled up with molten metal, and when it cools, we are left with a casting. But not all castings come out perfect, so we'll end up having to machine it later to make it precise and match our design. And this is the actual redboard pattern for the vise. And as you can see, each pattern has 2 halves, one for the static and dynamic jaw.
Now is going to be the first operation.
Every mold begins with sand mixed with special binders. This sand is strong enough to hold molten iron.
You see the color, black color, is because the binders that we added. We added 2 different types of binders.
The binders in the sand act like glue, but in order for the sand to stick together and harden, it has to be packed down tightly by hand.
The 647, he makes sure he hand pack and create a hard spot. If you don't hand pack, it will be like an ugly mold.
The sand the Foundry uses to make these molds is a very fine grain, meaning that when the molten metal is poured and cooled, the casting will have a nice smooth surface. During the sand packing process, a metal rod is placed into the static jaw mold. This gives an attachment point to lift the heavy mold from. A mold is also made for a core. The purpose of a core is to create a hollow space in the dynamic jaw casting. This space gives room for the spindle and hardware that will be added to the vise later. The core needs to be strong, or molten metal will fill the cavity and ruin the casting.
Yeah, missing wires to make the core stronger. It's a long core. If you don't put any wire, then it can collapse. If it's not as strong, and then they collapse over there. That was the first operation.
It only takes a few minutes for the sand to bond and become ready to remove from the housing.
Now it's going to go the third operation. Prepare the mold before you close it. This is how we spray it to fill all the grain because it's 640 sand. That's the trick. If you don't paint it, you're going to have a lot of problems in the cleaning room. I'm going to send you casting real bad. Just want to try the wash. You got alcohol wash. That was the cup. Now we're going to the track, same operation. A lot of people use water-based. It works okay, but it's still, you got moisture inside. You know, if it's not dry completely, you're going to have some secondary defects. And with this, no problem. Okay, now it's going to bring the core. We use the same sand to make the core. This is locator. That is to prevent the shift. And then we use those to prevent any setting incorrectly. See, those locators is like a guide. That paste, they have to seal the clothes. They're like a glue.
Efron placed a thin sheet of paper on top to make sure all of the heat didn't immediately escape up and out.
When you pour the metal, you got a lot of pressure. If you don't put the weights, the mold move up. And with that, you prevent everything, every seal you can have.
With the cavity created to pour some molten metal into, the next step was to decide on which type of metal to put into it.
This is the scrap that we buy to make a type of metal that we need. Cast iron and cast iron different ways. Ductile, high silica, and class 30 different grade. 1010, 1018 steel is a mild steel. 12,000 a day, that day, average. We pay a lot of money of this.
The cool thing about scrap steel is how abundant it is. It comes from repurposing bits and pieces that were already around. They convert this scrap steel into what's called ductile iron. By adding a little bit more carbon, this is going to lower the melting temperature and make it easier for the foundry to pour, but still gives us all the benefits of steel. Once the steel is melted and transformed into ductile iron, it's poured into the molds. As the molten metal fills inside, it takes the path of least resistance and fills it into the open pathways created by the pattern. The metal will then cool overnight before the molds are broken. It takes about a day for the metal to fully cool. At this time, we don't know what the casting looks like inside the mold. The foundry has a specific location inside the building to break apart the sand mold. It's at this time it unveils what's inside. The sand will be repurposed later and recycled.
All the molds being break, we take the casting out, clean it, and we separate the sand. After that, we put it inside to the checker and send them back to the sand silo.
From this point, only the flawless castings move forward in production. Creating a vise demands countless hours of skill and manpower. Any imperfections, like a hidden void, blemishes, or even when a mold shifts during the cooling process, means rejection. These castings are scrapped, recycled, and melted back into raw material to start over again. Only the castings that meet the highest standards move forward in production, ensuring every piece delivers the effort behind it. Now these parts need to be cleaned up from the sand left behind during the casting process. This process requires the castings to enter another part of the foundry, where they're going to enter a machine called a wheelabrator. This machine will shoot thousands of tiny steel shot at the surface of the casting. This will remove any impurities on the surface. It will also make the surface smooth and uniform.
See that little guy? I bring him from my other job. He wants to do my best, flat off and grinding over there. That's why I bring him here. Never complain, all the time. Now, go to grinding. After grinding is going to be the final.
Castings now face their final phase at the foundry, requiring excess material to be ground away. And this is where some pretty massive grinders get their time to shine. And this preps the vise components for the next step, precision milling. To make that happen, these vise castings get transported to the Fireball machine shop. And from here, lead engineer Kelvin Flores will make this all happen.
My name is Kelvin Flores, and I'm in charge of the machine shop here at Fireball Tool. It's our job to make sure that these parts go from raw castings to finalized vices to put into your hands. We have about 4 different castings that we're working with, and each one has a minimum of about 3 processes before we can even send it out to get painted and then go through our assembly process. So we have about 8 vertical mills here, then we have 2 5-axis CNC lathes. For all of our machining capabilities, we do all of our accessories here for our fixture tables as well as these vices. Each vise obviously takes up its own dedicated machine. This guy is able to go onto our Haas VF4 machines that we have. It's actually one of our easiest parts to machine, but one of our hardest parts to cast. The way that our swivel base works is we have 2 wedge nuts that go up at an angle, and that friction between them is what holds the base in place from swiveling out. We need it to be casted and we need it to be at the right angle. So this one has angles casted into it properly. It has a hole big enough for our wedge nuts to go through, which is important because machining this is not really feasible on our end. We locate the holes in the ears, we'll bolt it down, face off this top, flip it over, locate again, face this off, finish the holes out, finish out this center hole, and that's it for this guy. Takes probably about a day or so, and we have 20 machined, which is good. Next, we have the hardtail cap that we work with. So this comes in raw, has the counter bore and this hole casted into it as well. So this goes into our big VF6 mill. We'll take it and we'll fixture it. So fixturing these parts is kind of challenging as each part is uniquely casted. We need to ensure that we're in the same area that we're grabbing it. We need to make sure that we're not taking too much off of one side and we're more centered out to the part. And then our tolerances for everything is really slim. It's within 2-3 thousandths per part. So therefore, there's very little margin of error in our parts. We'll face off this drill in holes. We'll machine this, we'll machine these outer edges, and we'll do this counter bore and the through hole that comes in, and we'll clean that up from the casting. And we're able to face these walls at the end too, in order to have our finalized part that goes onto the back of the jaw after it gets painted. One of our more harder parts to work with is this dynamic jaw. Our main job is to make sure that we machine the slide So this gets machined on our VF6 mill. Has a very large table on that we're able to put this on. So we run into issues where we can machine the slide and this doesn't line up. So when we put the jaws on, they're not at the same height. And the machining of these takes probably at least a day to get the slide done, because we always have to dial it up with a static jaw and make sure that there's no funky business happening with that. Our next thing to do is we machine these faces here and we put 2 holes into here. These holes need to be hand drilled and tapped. We don't have a mill capable of hitting that without hitting the dynamic jaw slides. Most importantly, out of all our castings, we have our static jaw. This is essentially the center part of the whole vise. Then we're able to have the jaw vertical. It comes through, our machine will come in, get these faces, it'll get these pads just a bit, flip it over 180 degrees. We get the backside, which entails the area for our hardtail cap to go onto. And lastly, we'll turn it on its head and machine this out, put these holes in there. Then there's the hole that we drill and tap in the very center there. That's the very first process for our static jaw. So once all that's machined, we need to send it out to get broached.
Static jaw needed to be machined here in the shop before it can be broached. So what exactly is a broach? A broach is a long tapered cutting tool with a bunch of cutting teeth that gradually increase in size. The way this works is, the small end of the taper on the broach enters a hole. The broach is forced through the hole, enlarging it, cutting the surface away that comes in contact with the teeth. Custom tooling like this is expensive and require a lot of skill to manufacture. To help solve this problem of broaching the vise, Fireball has contracted and partnered up with Pioneer Broach Company. So let me introduce you to Bob.
My name is Bob Ezor. I've been here for 25 years. It's a business that was started by my grandfather in the early 1920s. My father took the business over from my grandfather, and I've been helping my dad for quite some time. It's a family tradition. We are a full-service broach manufacturing company and offer production broaching services here for the aerospace industry, automotive, any other industry that manufactures metal parts. Broach is a tapered metal cutting tool. It's made out of PMM4, 67 Rockwell. The broach tool itself is made within 2/10 tolerance, and the accuracy that it can hold within 1,000ths. So this is an extremely unique application. This application is starting from an existing geometry. The broach itself isn't actually generating the shape, it's actually shaving out from an existing form. Essentially, in the manufacturing of the broach, required us to start from the lowest possible dimensional feature that we would encounter so that the broach could get into the hole, and then the broach will shave out and finish to the finished geometry. The tool itself was difficult primarily because of its size and because of the need for accuracy. It was probably around 6 months to finish the broach, 180 man hours grinding time to make the broach. It can probably broach, I would say, thousands and thousands of these parts. Will probably be the last broach you'll ever need. And we've got terrific engineers, a great team of tool makers. So we were up to the challenge, and happy to work with a US-based manufacturer of these types of parts. And Fireball was determined to see it through. And now they have the benefit of having a beautiful made in the USA part.
And then this part returns back to the Fireball machine shop, along with another part that was also sent out, the vise screw. And if you look at its unique shape, we have a large bulk of metal on one end and a screw on the other. In order to create this shape, we need to go to another machine shop where we're going to combine this. The spherical end, or the meatball, is fused onto the end of the shaft, and the screw threads are roll formed into shape. This hardens the screw and makes it extremely strong.
So after our static jaw comes back from being broached, we need to match it up with a dynamic jaw, and we need to finalize the machining of the dynamic jaw to perfectly match up with our static jaw. Or the next step for these dynamic jaws is to clean up the cast finish. You can see the finish on the head here is different. This is very raw, straight from the foundry. Finish and form is important. So we take a grinder to this, we clean it up, we level this all out, then we'll do some hand sanding if necessary. Then we take a needle scaler and we actually punch through and texturize this so that it looks like a raw, good casted part again. And when we paint that shows through in the paint, it just looks really good. So this, similar to the dynamic jaw, there's no weird bumps or higher points or valleys in our casting for this. Once that's done and we have a good batch to send out, we'll send it out to get painted on our truck, and it comes back on that exact same pallet. Once we have our dynamic jaws back, then it's time to start for us assembling. We take our dynamic jaw, we put it onto our fireball table here, and we will put our thrust bearings in to the spindle, make sure that that lines up. We put our compression spring, and then we need to tighten up that spring and our shaft collar on there, and tighten up that shaft collar in order to make sure that there's little backlash and we're able to ensure clean movement within our dynamic jaw and our tube nut. Our next step is to put the swivel base onto the static jaw. We'll lift the static jaw up a little bit, put the swivel base underneath. After that, it's putting the hardtail onto the static jaw. We put a lot of lubricant onto both the dynamic jaw slide and the faces that are moving. Make sure that the dynamic jaw goes in and there's no issues in terms of clearance or rubbing along the sidewalls on the inside. Once that's good, we're able to label the hardtail cover. We take the hardtail cap off and we'll take it to go stamp a tag onto there. And then that lets us serialize and just have a unique number per vise. Lubricant onto spindle just to make sure that it is protected from rust, make sure it's protected from any grime that could hit it so that we can take care of still raw parts of it. After all that, we'll clean up our vise because it has finger marks all over it. It's gonna be dirty. So we'll clean it up, get it back to that nice red paint finish, and then we're ready to lift it in and down into the crate, and it's ready to go to a customer.
And before any vise reaches a customer, Fireball puts them through extreme testing, creating high-stress scenarios to sufficiently prove that these vices should never break, far beyond what any normal workshop would ever demand of it. This vise features a 6.5-inch jaw width and the largest opening vise in its class at 14 inches, and weighing in at 265 pounds. All this extra weight has allowed us to call this vise a high-pressure vise. This vise operates at normal clamp loads between 0 to 30,000 pounds on a regular basis. All the components in this vise are repairable and serviceable. This is the strongest, most durable vise on the market today, built like a precision instrument, but tough enough for a lifetime of abuse. Most tools wear out, but this one is built so well, you may never need to buy another vise again. From the foundry floor, to the machine shop, to final assembly, this is how a Fireball vise gets made. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.